Yeah, that's a really good question, and I'm not sure that I can define what a silver bullet is, but the work they're doing at NodePol is actually quite amazing. They're taking advantage of not only the economy, but the environment in the area of Sweden. There's a surplus of renewable energy, probably some of the lowest cost per megawatt hour renewable energy of anywhere in the world. It's a very stable economy, and they have a very high level of technology and innovation residing in that area. Silver bullet, I don't know that I can completely answer that, but an exceptional business model for data centers going forward for sustainability, they're absolutely nailing it. I think it's very correct and proper to do so, but it brings up a point where the transparency in the amount of energy or power consumed per data centers is not nearly as good as where I think the global industry would like to see it or where it needs to be. I always refer back to Lord Kelvin, who, as I sum it up, basically says you cannot manage what you do not measure. So it's very important that we continue to have increased in our transparency so we can get a good idea of exactly how much power are we using globally, by region, by state, by country, all the way down to the specific facilities. We do know that data centers consume a large amount of energy. We are seeing a shift towards more of renewable, but paint the picture that way with data centers, I believe, is very accurate. Well, if my friend and colleague, Professor Bitterlin, is listening to this, I need to make sure I get this correct. Power usage effectiveness. The idea of this metric when it was created by the Green Grid wasn't to measure efficiency. The idea of the metric of PUE was over the course of at least a year to create a baseline of your power usage and to look at the proportional relationship to the total power coming into your facility and how much is being used by your IT equipment and how much is being used by your non-IT or your facility equipment. So what this does over the course of a year, it allows us to look back and it directly points us to the ineffective use of electricity, which then allows us, because we're measuring, the opportunity to manage and trim up the ineffective uses of our power. So when the metric is used accurately and not as a marketing tool and as a baseline over the course of 12 months and beyond, it is a very effective measurement on how well are we using our power, or more importantly, how much waste, if any, of power do we have within the facility. A very interesting question, and some of it I think depends on region, and there's a few points that we do need to understand. Water usage in data centers and the lack of transparency is somewhat comparable to the amount of power, although the transparency with power consumption has gotten much better. The other point that I want to mention here, there are other industries that use far more water than data centers throughout the year, and their transparency is maybe a little bit better. But what we are seeing, there have been some what we would call investigative reports on data center water usage, specifically digging into the larger hyperscalers and the amount of water they use. Some of them are doing a great job with transparency, but overall, it hasn't been a metric that we see widely published, but it is definitely one as we talk about carbon neutrality, we talk about reducing carbon footprint and being a sustainable industry, that we have to do a much better job, not only of tracking and reporting and the transparency with the amount of water we use, but putting the same level of effort to gain efficiency in water usage that we are doing with our power. Yeah, this is a question that's very near and dear and close to my heart, and an area I have great passion for. When we talk about problems or issues or improving, at any time that we can verbalize this problem, that problem loses a little bit of its power. And the idea of the data center world and the amount of people that gather and attend and the sheer level of expertise, the amount of innovation, the new technologies that are able to be shared. And it's actually a wonderful thing, because as data center employees or members of the global data center employee, it doesn't matter to me what country you're from or your economic background or none of the markers that normally seem important. The importance becomes, how can we learn from one another? And from this learning, how can we make our industry a more sustainable and more environmentally responsible industry?